What's going on, everybody? Tonight we're gonna talk about the paycheck stack, right? As federal employees, the paycheck stack is super important, and the reason why it's super important is because it's unique to you. Now, when you watch the news, when you watch CNBC, when you listen to your local news, and they're talking to financial experts, a lot of times they're talking to the the majority of people, right? The majority of people, they have their Social Security, then they have their 401k. And those are the two incomes that they live off of for the rest of their life. Now, I talk about that a lot in a lot of these webinars, but tonight I really want to focus in on it because it's one of those things that has been talked about a lot recently, especially with inflation going up, and you've seen everything that's going on with the Iran war. You're starting to see a lot of folks retire, and then there's a big delay in when that first paycheck comes, and so people are drawing more in their TSP earlier on in the process, and so those are a couple of reasons. But here's the thing: as federal employees, you're going to get three checks. Now, the order in which you take those checks, well, and it's outside of the pension being the first one. Whether you take Social Security, whether you take TSP, doesn't necessarily is no one way fits all. It's definitely unique to your personal situation. And so when you hear somebody say you must do it this way, that's not accurate. There is a way to do it that's unique to you, but there's no one size fits all when it comes to this. And the reason why I say this is because I meet folks all the time. They're married, they have two pension checks coming in. One has a big TSP balance, one doesn't have one spouse has a big TSP balance, one doesn't, and but they both have large Social Security. And they have a large Social Security that don't necessarily need right away because they have the joint pensions. So it might make sense to start drawing down on the TSP because you're paying the taxes when you draw it down early, and then it saves you when it comes to RMDs, right? So you could do Roth conversions as one way, taking income from your TSP is another way early on, and then it allows you later on to start taking Social Security, and you have Social Security at a bigger amount. Some folks don't have big TSP balances, and they want their TSP to grow over time, or they might have a situation where they want to leave a lot of money to their family. Then it's like, okay, the asset that you can leave to your family is your TSP. You can't leave your Social Security to your family. And so in those cases, it's different, right? And so I say all that to say, and it's 100 other scenarios that we could play around with. So when you hear someone say you must do it this way, that's not always accurate. What you must have, though, is a plan. And so we'll dig deeper into that. We're going to talk about the paycheck stack during this call. But I want to address a couple of headlines real quick that are going on in the news right now that directly impact that. So one of the things is OPM's backlog now. They update the wait list every week. And so now the wait list is at 96 days, which is the longest it's been in a while. But the number of people on the wait list has dropped. Right now, that can be because of the online application process now is fully in effect. The paperwork, the last paper application they say was shredded on July 9th or something like that. And so that's done. So maybe just transitioning to the new technology is causing the wait list to jump. And that has impact on when you draw to your TSP. But just wanted to update that. That now is at 96 days. But one thing that is very important when it comes to retirement planning is what the cost of living, the COLA increase will be for those that are retired. So if you're on the call right now and you're retired, what I'm about to talk about will impact you. If you're working, your cost of living is totally up to Congress and the president, right? So if inflation is up, like it's around 4% right now, that doesn't impact you in any way. It's all about Congress and how they operate. Now, if you're retired though, there's a formula that they use when it comes to your cost of living increase. And this is something that you can think about when it comes to your retirement planning. When it comes to your first pension, the cost of living increase right now is expected to be at a 3.1. Why? Is because, and this is how you calculate it, and this is how you can know if you're retired what your raise is going to be. They take the inflation report that comes out on the third quarter of the year. They take that inflation report. Now, if the number is at 2%, then you're going to get the full 2% as a raise on your first pension in retirement and your civil service for pension in retirement. So you'll get that. Now, if the inflation report goes above 2%, if it goes to 3, you still get the 2. And mind you, inflation is what the cost of goods are. They run a report and they say, all right, Americans are spending an extra 3% this year. Now, the cost of living increase for a federal employee, if it goes to 3, you only get 2. Now, if it goes above 3, then you'll get an extra percent minus 1, right? So you'll get, if it's 4%, then you'll get 3%, if that makes sense. They always minus it by whatever the number is, minus 1, right? If it's 5%, you'll get a 4% raise. But if it's 3, you still get 2, right? So that's how that works. And so why does that matter to you, right? The reason why that matters to you is this is the reason why I'm always talking about making sure you're investing your TSP in a way that offsets inflation. And when we talk about our financial house, we talk about making sure your foundation is right. And that foundation is the money that you want safe. Most people, when they think about safety, they think about putting all their money in the G fund. So imagine you have all your money in the G fund. In the G fund, if you look at the G fund right now, the average return over a 10-year period is at 2.8%. Despite the G fund having 2 really good recent years in the last 2, the last 10-year average is still at 2.8%. And so imagine you have all your money in the G fund getting 2.8%. Inflation is up 5, for example, like it is now, around 5% on the cost of things. 4, sorry, is at 4 right now on the cost of things. You're getting 2.8% on the G fund. Then your cost of living increase on your pension is also now on a 4% year is down to 3. So you're losing on both sides. You're not losing money per se, but your buying power, the cost of things are going up. Now you compound that over a 10-year period. This is how when people get older and they're just feeling like things are tight, and they're not like, I don't know why things feel tight. It's because they've been leaking on the buying power aspect. They haven't seen a drop in their money, but the cost of things are costing a lot more. It's like, well, I can't afford to take that trip, or medical costs come in and it's like, well, dang, that was expensive. Or they're trying to help their family members with things. I was talking to a person today, and one of their kids lost their job and they just got married and all this stuff in there. They're helping them out, and it's tough, and they want to do it, but it's tough because they're feeling squeezed by everything that they have. And that's just the reality of what it feels like in a high inflation world. And so while we talk about that financial house so much, especially when it comes to stacking the paycheck, is because your first pension is going to lose to inflation pretty much most years, right? It's just going to lose to inflation. And so you have to offset that by making sure you have the right investment structure within your TSP. One good thing is Social Security when you retire, that increase matches the inflation report. So as the inflation report goes up, so does your Social Security income. Now, one thing like I talked about last week, when they're doing these inflation reports, obviously a lot of it sometimes is political, right? So this year it says the inflation report's at 4%, but we all know the cost of things have gone up more than 4%. But you got to rely on who's in office to tell the truth. And another thing is, when it comes to that, they take all the goods everywhere and they use a formula to create that. But we all know health insurance costs has gone up more than 4% in this last year, right? And that's the biggest cost you're going to pay in retirement if you're not military. And so when it comes to these things, you must plan, especially with your TSP as federal employees, to offset that difference, because otherwise the things that are fixed incomes like your Social Security and your pension, you're going to lose to inflation with those over time. There's just no way around it. If you're working and you're planning for retirement, because federal employees haven't gotten really big raises over the last couple of years, that's another reason why you're going to lose to inflation, especially when you throw in the health insurance and things like that. So that's the reason why we have our financial house. We have our financial house where we create the foundation, making sure the money that you need as far as income and things like that is there. making sure that grows at the bare minimum above the inflations, above the inflation. Keep it safe, but above inflation. And this is where fixed index annuities come in, diversifying the investments within the G Fund C and S&I, a whole host of things go there. Making sure your income or long-term care, future long-term care issues, what you want to leave to your wife and kids, or your husband and your kids, or whoever, that money is there. We make sure it grows above inflation. That's what you want to make sure. Then you have your walls, which is your insulation. There, you also want to be focused on inflation, and the risk there can vary just a little bit, but mainly in the walls, you want to insulate yourself from taxes, because as a federal employees, you're going to be subject to more taxes than private industry people. And the reason being is private industry people use their 401k as their main income source. So they're drawing down on a yearly basis, which means they're paying taxes on it on a yearly basis, and it's drawing down. Whereas you, as a federal employee, you're not necessarily using your TSP as your full income source. You're using it for maybe 10, 20% of your income, or not at all for some people. And so your TSP is going to continue to increase. And if you have a lot of your money in the traditional TSP, what ends up happening, let's say you have 400,000 in your TSP, and at that time, 170,000 of that is the IRS's money. Now you're at 600,000. Now the IRS is owed 250, and then so on and so on and so on. That portion just keeps growing and growing and growing. And then when it transfers over to your kids or to your spouse, and they're in a single filing single bracket after you pass, there's more taxes, right? And there's we talk about that a whole lot, but all that stuff really, really matters, right? And so when it comes to being a federal employee, one of the questions that we always get is, well, should I take my Social Security at 62, period, right? That's the question we always get. Now, should you, if you don't have a whole lot in your TSP, you need income? Absolutely. One of the things, and again, this case by case, I'm just giving you a general point, because sometimes people say, well, should I always delay it? There's not a rule of thumb whether you should always take it or always delay it, but I'm gonna give you a simple scenario that you can understand if you need to or not. Not saying it's what you need to do, but I'm just giving you a general scenario. Again, if you want to talk more specifically about your situation, it's best to book a call. My team will put that link in the chat. For any of these questions, my job is just provide as much value as I can in the best way I can, so that you can have things to think about and you're more educated than you were before you got here. That's with all of our content. All of our content is not one size fits all, because nothing is that. But when it comes to the question of 62 or wait, here's what you have to think about, just from a pure practical perspective. Because people say, well, Mr. Smith, I want to retire at 62. My FERS pension is this, and my Social Security is 62 is this. That let's say that nets out to $7,000 a month between the two. But I really, my bills are about $6,500. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna wait. I'm gonna take some from my TSP. Now, mind you, the TSP is not a whole lot, and so I'll just do that, and I'll live below my means until I'm 67, where I can get my full Social Security. From my experience, just don't do that, or just think about a better way. And here's why I say that. Because you work 30 years, 35, 25, whatever it is, you don't want to go into a place of forced poverty. If you take your Social Security and your income is good and you can live comfortably, take it. Don't force yourself to work another 5 years where you're hating your job, or stressing you out, or you're retired but you feel poor because you're waiting for this magic day of 67 to come. And people do it all the time. I'm like, and they're looking at it and they feel like they're like smart. Like, oh yeah, this is a smart thing. I'm gonna wait till 67 and I'll figure it out. I'll just live below my means. I can move my kids and I can move in with them, or I won't take any trips. Maybe I'll start this part-time thing or whatever. But then when we run the numbers, I'm like, but if you take it at 62, you're feeling way more comfortable. Yes, it's not as much as it is at 67, but you're not feeling stressed at the end of the month. because you work all these years not to feel broke in retirement. You work to all these years so that you can enjoy life. And so this is why it's important to have a plan, because once that plan is laid out, and 9 times out of 10, when that person comes to me and they say, "Well, I'm gonna do 67. I'm either gonna just not take it and just live below my means, or I'm gonna work to 67." When we put the income stack together, like, well, dang, what you're saying makes a whole lot of sense, and you're right. Because as federal employees, you don't have to feel the same pressure that non-federal employees feel around retirement, because you got three different places you can take income from, which is significant. And I've seen federal employees who started in the government late, didn't think they could be able to retire, but that pension, along with Social Security and whatever they have in their TSP, goes a very, very, very long way. And so when it comes to taking it at 62 or wait, again, it's case by case. But if you're somebody that thinks you want to wait to 67 and you want to retire at 62, and you say these things like, well, I'll just live below my means until then. Or you could retire at 62 if you take Social Security, but you feel like you want to wait to 67 and you hate your job and you're like, well, I'll just make the sacrifice until I turn 67 because I want my full social. No, create a plan, look at the plan, and then make a decision based on having access to all of the information, because that makes a huge difference. And we run these reports all the time when we do our TSP finish line process, where we'll take you through our discovery call, our readiness call, our strategy calls. Through all of that, we're helping you dig through the weeds and through the thoughts of what retirement looks like. And it's our job to make sure we put all these different scenarios in place so that you can see clearly and not just assume. And so one of the big ones, that 62 or wait, is a big one when it comes to your income stack. Now, it could work for you, obviously, but you want to make sure that you have your TSP, because your TSP can fill that gap pretty easily. But if it can't for you, that's still not an excuse not to retire. You just got to make sure you have a. And so, another thing when it comes to this is like, what role does your TSP play in the pension income stack? Here's the role the TSP plays. The TSP is like, it's that extra. It's that extra thing you bring out, right? It's like that extra gift you bring out at Thanksgiving or at Christmas or whatever. Like the one you're just like, all right, if this is enough, we're going to add this on top. And it just creates the whole buzz. And so when it comes to your TSP, most federal employees, when they get to retirement, especially if you work over 20 years, from my experience, and I've been doing this now 18 years, most federal employees who've worked a while in the government, they have enough income. They have enough income between their FERS pension and their Social Security to cover the majority of their bills. The majority. Now, the TSP comes in as the extra that you could put on top of that to create the lifestyle that you want. So, for example, I was meeting with a client yesterday, and they have a lot in their TSP. She started late in the government, but she had 1.4 million in her TSP. And so she's like, well, what do I do with this? And I said, well, what's your income now? Her income now was at like 190. She was very high up. And so she's like, well, I'm bringing in, and I don't know the exact number off the top of my head, but let's just say she was bringing in 10,000 a month between her and her husband net, right? So she's like, all right, I'm bringing in 10,000 a month. Her first pension and Social Security would have gotten her to about 7,000. And so I said, well, what type of life do you want to live? And so she said, well, I want to bring in at minimum what I'm taking home right now. And so we ran the scenario, put a couple of things together, and the TSP, we just decided, okay, we're going to take 4,000 a month from that. And we mapped out a plan, and it just pushed her over the finish line. And she was stressed about retirement because she just didn't know. She's like, I don't know if I'll be able to retire or what. TSP added that extra. There's also people who have a lot less in their TSP. And they're like, okay, well, I want my TSP to continue to grow because I'm not satisfied with where it is right now. I had another client. She had around 150 in her TSP. And she's like, I was trying to pay for my kids' college. I was just trying to be a single mom. Well, not trying. I was a single mom. I was trying my best as a single mom to create the lifestyle for these kids. So I wasn't able to put a lot of money away for myself. Now I'm at retirement and I got 150K there. I want this to continue to grow because I want to do more for my grandkids, right? Because she had enough income, thank God. And so we made a plan to make sure she has a growth bucket and protected bucket so that she can grow her money in a safe fashion and not think about it, and also do some tax planning. So in her case, and she couldn't get life insurance because of a health issue. So we used her TSP as a legacy play. Then we have other folks who they say, okay, they want a TSP as an opportunity to use it for long-term care. So answer the question is, what is your TSP actually for? It could be for a variety of things. It could be for long-term care. I don't believe, and again, this is personal, based on my experience. It's not necessarily your situation. And if you want to talk about your situation, again, we could talk about it one-on-one. But when it comes to long-term care, I don't think it's a thing that most federal employees need. And the reason being is because I don't see a whole lot of people in retirement drawing their TSP all the way down. Most people we meet with, especially when we structure the FERS pension and the Social Security correctly, most people's TSP continues to grow, even if they're taking income off of it. Especially when we put them in the growth bucket and the protected bucket, and we build out that financial house, because we take all that into account. Most federal employees can use their TSP as a solution for long-term care. So long-term care could be a reason for your TSP. Tax strategy could be a reason for your TSP. Income, supplemental income, legacy for your kids, vacations, like amazing vacations. I have some clients who they don't have any intention on leaving a whole lot. They want to make sure that they live their best personal life. They're traveling overseas for extended period of time. It could be for a variety of things. There's no fixed path that your TSP needs to be on, because it's yours. And so one of the things I want you to walk away with on this call is, when you retire, get curious about what you want to experience and the life that you want to live. Don't think that you're in this place of like, now I'm retired, I must live below my means and things like this. You worked 20, 25, 30, 35, 40 years, some of you. Create a plan, and then in that plan, and I say this on the call, be selfish. Right? You were the one that hopped on the train, sat in traffic, dealt with bosses you didn't like, navigated the government system, stayed up late working these things. Yes, take care of your family, but be selfish. Let this part of your life be a different part where you choose you first. You've built this up. That TSP money is going to be here when you're gone. Like, use it. You were the one that made the sacrifice. You're the one that deserves to enjoy it. So